meeting at 7 p.m. This meeting has been noticed in the district and copies of the notice.
Can you speak
Also-
up? We
Sure.
can't hear you.
I was just calling the meeting to order and just saying that this meeting was noticed by copies in the district as well as copies of the meeting notice were sent to the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel and the Ozaukee News Graphic. And would everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to resolutions and recognitions.
Tonight we want to recognize our 4 buildings for PBAS recognition. We have Parkview, Thorson, and West Lawn all receiving the silver level recognition for behavior, which is a full implementation and fidelity in one area at the universal level and or at the level 2 level. The PBS, for those that might not be aware, is a structure and support for students, all students, and around their behavior and notifications and additional intervention. So we have all 3 elementaries receiving recognition on that. And then Webster received both recognition on behavior and reading as well. So good work done by all 4 buildings this year.
Thanks, Ted. The next recognition is going to be Mr. Adam Kirk, recognized in the high school accomplishments. Adam.
Thank you. 2 pages again tonight of celebrations of our students. We start with our state qualifiers for track and field. For the girls team, we had Abby Belchner, Mia Kettlehorn, Abby Kuborn, Naomi Gahan, Lucy Estrada, Maya Novak, Jenna Short, Olivia Grayma, and Hayden Simmons. For the boys team, Mitch Moeller, Sam Schlecker, and Braden Bowler. All conference girls track and field athletes, we had Mia Kettlehorn for shot put and discus, Abby Belchner for the high jump, and Hayden Simmons for the triple jump. All conference boys track and field, we had Mitch Muller for the shot put and the discus, Braden Bowler for the 400, and our 4x400 relay team consisting of Greg Sorrell, Sam Schlecker, Braden Bowler, and Corey Lucas. We had 2 state qualifiers for tennis, Charles Willer and Cooper Zimmerscheid. For our golf team, we had all-conference state qualifier and player of the year, Adam Dink. Girls soccer all-conference, we had a first-team all-conference player in Selena Eston. Second-team recognition, Mari Riggert. 3 honorable mention players from Cassie Lang, Olivia Manch, and Samantha Plover. Girls across all-conference, we had 2 who made the all-conference team. Second-team, Cassidy Darling, and honorable mention, Sophia Ladd. Our boys lacrosse team were the JV conference champions this year in their first year competing. Girls softball all-conference, we had 2 second-team players, Julia Eberhardt and Jenny Nimitz, and 4 honorable mention players in Kylie McInerney, Mackenzie Golfo, Lucy Rapier, and Katie Shimp. And then 2 additional acknowledgments. Congrats to Miranda Ratajczyk, who received 2 awards at the National History Day National Conference. And a congratulations to 2015 CHS graduate Jonathan Stever, who was recently selected and drafted by the Chicago White Sox in the 5th round of the Major League Baseball draft. That's all.
Congratulations.
Moving on to the consent agenda, Mr. Bugnanski.
Thank you. Board members, before you have the consent agenda, and the first item on consent agenda is the approval of the minutes from the May 16th, 2018 board meeting. Second item is the budget and financial information, and this information includes a summary of accounts, check register, check detail, and credit card transaction report. And the third item on the consent agenda is the personnel report, and I'll let Mr. Kevin Farner give you an update on that.
All of you need to speak up because we cannot hear. Pull your mics in closer. This is a larger group.
Sure, thanks for that. We can certainly
That's
speak
much
up.
better.
Does that help?
That
All right.
helps
I won't go through that again, because this is not all that important, this section. We'll make certain that we're loud and clear on the other sections. Go ahead, Mr. Finer.
Thank you. This evening, we have the following educators who have indicated their intent to not return for next school year. Nicole Donahue, Erin Mann, Jessica Poggle, Caitlin Rouse, Mary Langmeyer, Abby Schwanz, and Jill Doherty. We have before you employment contracts for next school year for Jim Munkwitz, Caitlin Wiesa, Nick Mueller, Jenna Jagler, Bianca Benkley, Benjamin Nguyen, Jessica Roberts, Andrea Cramey, Nathan Lunk, and Kate Ellsburn. And we also have the administrative contracts for next year to be approved tonight. Support staff who have indicated they will not be returning are Addie Largent, Sean Kerwin, Chloe Lake, Anna Butler, and Amy Radke.
So board members, I ask you to approve the consent agenda as presented this evening.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Moving on to superintendent's notes.
Excellent. We have 3 items under the superintendent's notes this evening. The first one, student services update on student mental wellness framework. Ted Noel is going to do that presentation. And we've decided to move this to July into the COW. It's going to provide more opportunity to have engagement, and the presentation is somewhat lengthy. And we received some additional information just recently that I think would add to that presentation. So we thought it'd be best to incorporate that additional information into the presentation and bring it back in July. I'll let Ted just make a few comments about that presentation.
So this is a framework we've been working on for about 2 years now as a student services team in our district, and it's finally coming to a place where we are able to gain some traction on it and work with some of our students at a variety of different levels, and we're excited to present it to the board, and I think it will have a positive impact as we move forward in the future.
So Ted, maybe you just want to comment about the safety assessment that was going on and some recent information that you received that you think could be valuably incorporated in that presentation.
Absolutely. So in our safety and security audit sit-down with the consultant, my portion of it was about an hour, and sat with Pat Sorensen, our school psychologist. And we spent a good deal of time talking about proactive strategies we're doing, using with our students. Not so much, locking of doors and things like that in terms of exterior security, but how are we working with all of our students to build relationships and make sure they're doing well in their learning and socialization. And so that was he said that was something that he'll be bringing up in his report is how important that is, and I think that will be important in our mental health framework in terms of how we address a variety of students within our schools.
Yeah, it was an interesting conversation. He had mentioned a couple times to me that one of the best proactive positions you can put a district in is to invest in the school district culture and relationships. And he had a number of ideas on how to do that. And that's going to be incorporated into Ted's presentation in July. Thanks, Ted. The next item under the superintendent's update is a report from Alan Groth, the Director of Curriculum and Instruction. Alan has a special guest here tonight, and I'll let Alan take it from here. Alan.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to, my name is Alan Groth, I'm the Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and tonight I'm going to give a very brief presentation on River Ridge Nature Center Scientists in Residence. Can you all hear me well?
I think you may need to speak it a little louder, Alan. Maybe there's a volume switch on that.
Should be able to make it taller.
Nice.
Jack of all trades.
Looks like you're ready to sing.
Scientists in residence here can do all things.
Scissors.
Swanson, you want to say hello?
Sure. Hello, everybody.
That's good, thank you.
Very good.
Oh, turn it on, Alan.
So 2 items related to the Scientists in Residence partnership that we have I'm going to share on this evening. One is the partnership that's been in place for around 5 years, and then also talk about the Scientists in Residence, which is a new component that was added a couple years ago. So the partnership background, so in about 2012, all the schools, the elementary schools in particular, entered into a partnership with River Ridge Nature Center, which provides all students in the system with really a field trip experience. They all go out to River Ridge Nature Center. The idea is that it enriches the science curriculum and gives students a hands-on learning experience related to the environment. So again, focused on the elementary, lots of awesome experiences with students, including some partnership experiences here right in the district. So River Edge themselves have come into the district and actually have done things like assisted with the Westlawn Woods restoration. So different things over a period of time, but just a great opportunity for our students to all have this environmental experience.
Alan, if you get closer, they're saying they can't hear you.
You betcha. This is one of our district beliefs, and I thought it's a great connection for us just to consider this as we consider River Edge Nature Center. So our partnerships extend beyond the city and town limits. So River Edge being in the town of Saukville is one example of how our learning community extends beyond the city of Cedarburg and beyond our schools. Another example, the Literacy Collaborative, Ohio State University is a partner of the district. Milwaukee School of Engineering is another partner in the district. So our boundary lines as it relates to a learning community go beyond the city limits. And I think as we think about River Edge, it's exciting to really consider that someplace that's not too far away but is also outside of the Cedarburg city limits is actually a partnership of ours. An extension now of that partnership was they had come to the district approximately 4 years ago and started conversations with scientists and residents. They're working with the West Bend School District as well and the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and studying the impact of bringing the environmental experiences to students and how it impacts achievement. So they reached out to Cedarburg and asked us to consider would we want to partner, which is Kendra Swanson, who's going to talk to us shortly. And they actually provide Kendra to us, so they cover Kendra's wage. It's a 5-year commitment to the district that she'll be here with us. She's now starting really her second year, so completely funded by them. And just you're going to hear briefly some of the awesome experiences our students have been afforded. So we agreed to enter into the partnership. The board was made aware of that, and so Kendra partners and works with teachers. I think this is an important piece. The board members, you've heard all the schools talk about their theory of action as it relates to change and things that we're working on in our schools. This is another example as it relates to River Edge Nature Center. So this wheel here shows on the outside a model for coaching support. So when you coach teachers or you work with adults, typically the coach is I do and you watch. We do together, so coach plus the teacher, and then eventually it moves to you do. So the teacher does, and the coach is more the observer. The theory with River Edge Nature Center around this whole initiative is that based on their research, outdoor learning and having students engage in the environment actually increases student achievement. So they're watching carefully, both West Bend, Cedarburg School District, how through focus groups, student engagement, anecdotal notes that they receive from Kendra, observations, how actually incorporating the environment into the student learning experiences increases student achievement. So by providing a coach, a scientist in residence, they're actually doing a little bit of action research simultaneously while our kids benefit from Kendra's support. Kendra Swanson, we've been really fortunate, a very talented individual. I know everywhere you go, you bring sunshine, and you talk to kids, and you're going to see some photographs of things that she's done with students that just really has brought a great deal of engagement of our environment, which is beautiful here in Cedarburg, into their lives. So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you share some of the highlights of your experiences.
Thanks so much. I love talking to people about my job, so this is just a real treat for me, especially to share with you this fantastic community. I have a background as a non-formal educator, and teachers have always been some of my heroes. But I was also always that student who was trying to climb halfway up a tree in the middle of any kind of leeway given. So I have a special place in my heart for those particular students that are really, really making the most in a very particular way of the outdoor experience. So I'm really excited to talk about this partnership. So for the beginning part of the partnership, we're really focusing on how can I provide a positive example and support for teachers as we're approaching outdoor learning. There's a lot of reasons that teachers don't bring their students outside, and that's a really important conversation that's ongoing and that I've learned a lot from having that conversation. And so there very much is a partnership and an ongoing dialogue. So I'm doing things and they're watching, and they're also giving me a lot of really helpful and incredible feedback. So just the words of what I've been doing a little bit in the last year is being very heavily involved in the 4K. All of those kids I've worked with several times this year. All of their teachers have been involved in their end of the year picnic. We did family nature days this year. That was really a lot of fun. I've started piloting a program in the elementary schools called Nature Ninja Days. Helped, the name partially came from Katie Ramos, who's good with naming things. And so that was basically just a non-compulsory open opportunity for teachers in the elementary schools to sign up for a time slot and just bring a group of kids outside. So I'm modeling teaching a full class of a variety of ages outside in an interdisciplinary content setting on site, on the school site. And that's also helped dialogues take place. It's been very exciting. I have an office over at Webster, and so I've been working with teachers in the 6th and 7th grade, science and comm arts, a little bit with 8th grade, and then just also helping support teachers and finding, where are these connections between our school and our local community and the content that we're learning about. So here's some pictures. This is the fun part. So these are some pictures with 4K, seasonal exploration, subtitled Slugs, Bugs, and Smiling Mugs. I wrote that, pretty great. So I'm actually holding a slug in that upper right-hand photo. It's a really, really famous slug. You'll never find a slug with more attention than that one. And on the bottom right there, those are some kids. We did a litter sweep for Earth Day, but all weather outside. I don't just bring sunshine. There's been a lot of inclement weather. And we've had some great experiences as a part of that. Here's an example of making connections between River Edge programming, curriculum, and community connections. So what we have here, the 5th graders are learning about the scientific method. They go to River Edge, they do an aquatic water study. They come back and they do a similar study. This is Zunert Park within a walking distance from West Lawn Elementary School. So we walk there, they do a similar study, and they're asking really big questions. They're connecting this with a scientific method. We're talking about watersheds and community infrastructure. On the right, that's a group of students. We went out in the community. This was with the support of the city of Cedarburg. They gave us these plaques to help students mark and publicly inform where stormwater goes, which is directly into Cedar Creek. So that was really wonderful that they participated in that. These are some pictures of Nature Ninja Days. As I've said, these are non-mandatory, non-compulsory opportunities for teachers just to walk their kids out the door, and I provide programs, and they just sign up for what they want to learn about, and we just roll. So those are a lot of fun. Y'all are so welcome to come out anytime. This is over at Webster. On the left there, that's actually a comm arts class. They're doing an argumentative unit, and we're talking about multiple community contributors to water quality issues and how do we have a dialogue that's effective, where we can talk about those complicated issues. These here are students that actually might be Mr. Hermson's kids. Are those yours or are those somebody else's? Yep, pulling worms out of the ground. We can talk more about that later, guys, if you want to learn more about worms. And the students on the right there have been taking reading survival literature. And I was like, well, if they're learning about endurance, let's have them light fires with a bow drill outside in January. It's good vocabulary is learned when you do things like that. So this year I worked with 100% 4K through 5th grade educators in the district. They chose to work with me. I am so honored. I feel so lucky that I worked with all of these amazing people that work in this district. I worked closely with 12 teachers at Webster across grades, across content areas. And this year, there are over 300 volunteers that elected to help with outdoor programming service projects, parent days, what have you. And we also had a steering committee here also help in that dialogue and information gathering. So 115%, we had a 115% increase in teachers saying that they're using their outdoor spaces. We've had a 25% increase in teachers having positive feelings about the impact of outdoor learning on their students. And 40% of the classes I taught this year were not taught by me, but taught in partnership and collaboration with Cedarburg School District educators. So this is some of the numbers that we got between the pre and post elective survey through River Edge. I'm so excited for the next year, which is going to include more professional development opportunities for teachers and continuing that dialogue and support to build infrastructure and meaningful experiences for our students outdoors. So lots of exciting things going on, and I'm excited to talk to you guys about that. So thank you so much for having me.
I want a round of applause for Kendra. So board members, I'm sure you heard the cross-content connection she was making. It's like when we discuss STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, math integration. Here's another example of just bringing environmental sciences into the common arts classes, into art classes, into 4K classrooms. It's just touching throughout the system. So really applaud Kendra's efforts. And one thing you don't hear her talk about, but she's also a very talented musician. So she, with comm arts classes at Webster Middle School, talked about just almost the art of poetry writing through the environment, through actually out in the woods playing a song to students and just instructing them how you write music and how to compose, and just how inspirational that really was for the students. So lots of great things going on through your work, so we appreciate you. And that concludes our presentation.
Any questions, board members, for Alan or Kendra?
I think it's a great program. I'm glad you're doing it. And it looks like it's expanding well, so thanks.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to go to 4K, it was the entire 4K, and we were over at Centennial Park, and they had different stations up, and I was a little nervous at first volunteering because they were all there and they were really hyped up, but when they split them up into groups, and when they saw you, they got immediately engaged, and they were into it. I know Karen, you were there too, and it was really, really great to see, and great to see kids that age, getting into the environment and starting off on their journey to learning the scientific method and exploring. So it was really, really encouraging to see.
What's really cool about that too, that happened pretty organically. So just meeting with 4K teachers, talking about after our first year, what would be like an end of year culminating kind of activity. Kendra's at the table, and then together, really creating that kind of experience, not just going to the park, but all these little scientific explorations. So just great examples of things that you're doing here in our system. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. The next item on the superintendent's notes is an update on the long-range master plan, and specifically the project scope and the cost estimate. Let's see here. Can everybody hear me? All right? It's not very loud.
You gotta hold it in front of your mouth.
Yeah, I don't like that. I like this one better. Yeah, isn't that just how it works? So thank you very much, all of you, for attending this evening. I hope some of you are interested in the long-range master plan. Tonight we have an update, and I've been doing this every month since we started this process. And board members, again, thank you for your effort and your continued support in the development of our long-range master plan, which started back in October 2015. It was a Saturday when we started this conversation. Here we are 3 years later, and we've engaged with a number of groups, have conducted some internal studies, and are at a point where we can make recommendations to the board, and the board has been engaging and dialoguing around those recommendations, and those recommendations come from a number of focus groups that we've conducted, a number of listening sessions and individual conversations, and we continued in earnest in April and May when the survey was out to the general public, and here are some of the engagement opportunities that we're providing to the community and here in our district in April and May. During that time, we continue to focus on the three main areas from our long-range master plan, and that's learning spaces, school capacity, safety, and security. And that's been the real drivers in our long-range master plan development. And through the survey, we gained a great deal of input regarding those three areas, and we are in the process of refining our long-range master plan. From May to June, we had a number of activities that took place. The first one is the community survey results reviewed. We did that at a Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting on June 7th. Bill Foster was here from School Perceptions and provided a deep dive on the survey, and those survey results are on our website, and I'm going to go over those briefly. Our safety and security audit is underway. We had a gentleman here on the 29th, 30th, and 31st, visiting all of our sites, taking pictures, interviewing individuals, doing a complete assessment, and we had another round yesterday. And I want to thank Mr. Leach for participating in that. Rick was able to break away from his schedule and spend an hour with the consultant yesterday. So we anticipate that report coming back at the end of June, soon, probably within a week, beginning of July. And Taddy alluded to the conversation he had, and it's been a very meaningful and engaging process with that consultant on our safety and security plan. Other milestones since May, or May to June, would be the Building and Grounds Committee meeting. We had two on the 7th and the 12th. We had a P&F committee, and I'll go into a bit more detail on all three of those meetings later in the slideshow. And I think a big piece that we've been focusing on is the reviewed sectioning and monitoring of our enrollments over the last month. What we know is that our capacity continues to grow in our system, and we're really honing in on Thorson because that's where the sectioning is really, and enrollment's increasing. And we were just having a conversation yesterday that the computer lab is being dismantled, and we're getting ready to put additional section into the computer lab. After that computer lab space is taken, there's one space left, and that is a special education classroom that we are now dismantling and preparing that for a section. Special ed is going to move into offices at Thorson, where the current literacy coach is and a psychologist, and those individuals are now moving into the copy room, the aid room. And that's where the copier is and the aides, and they take care of a lot of processing of making and constructing the things for the teachers and supporting the overall mission of the school. And the aides are going to be moved to the library media center. So you can see the domino effect that's occurring because of the increased enrollment at Thorson. So
What if it increases more?
So we're at our last, so as I mentioned, we're taking over that special ed classroom. That's the last space we have available. The next option, which we are entertaining, is looking at potentially putting art or music on a cart. So freeing up the art room. And the art room's been bounced around a couple times as sections have increased at Thorson. We would put art on a cart. And so what you'd find is that the art teacher would roll into a classroom, a third grade classroom, and provide art to the students in their regular classroom. And I can let Alan speak to a little bit how that diminishes the art experience. Or it's music on a cart. Another example, you can put music on a cart, and the music teacher can roll into the classroom and provide music instruction in the general classroom. And again, when you look at the music room, it's full of instruments and a lot of hands-on experiences. Our music teachers do a great job, a lot of movement in those classrooms. Hard to do that in the general education classroom. So those are two options, Chris. And another option is to potentially look at a trailer and bring a trailer in. And so we're in the initial stages of investigating what the cost would be to house a trailer on the grounds at Thorson, where that would be, what it would look like, and is that an option that we should pursue? It's certainly something we should investigate. Those are the three remaining options to address the enrollment at Thorson. We had talked about you can change board, you can change the attendance zone. I can tell you that most of the parents who buy a house, they buy a house because they want to attend that school in their neighborhood. You can look at the development just to the south of Thorson, which is Sand Hills, I believe is what it's called. If you go to the east side of that, you can see the development occurring very quickly on the far east side of Sand Hills. And those individuals buy houses wanting their students to go to Thorson. So the idea of changing the attendance zone is not something that I would advise, especially since the site allows us to build out. The plan that we're talking about, the long-range master plan, would not actually be completed. If in fact the board supports it and wants to go on to the next step. If it's supported and we move forward, the additions at the elementary schools will be ready in the fall of 2020.
So the way that we're trending right now, year over year, we're gonna have to go to art on a cart or trailers based on how we've been increasing our enrollment there.
That's our assessment at this point, correct?
Todd, would another option be moving the 4K to off-site? It was one of the options that was discussed early on before we began 4K. Would that be an option too?
We can consider that. I think the 4K experience that our students are receiving now is far more valuable than an off-site experience. So our 4K kids are engaging with art, engaging with music, engaging with first grade, for example, or 5K. Some of those kids could be advanced to those classrooms and have a collaborative experience. If you want a robust experience for our 4K students, the best place for them would be in the school. 4K takes up one classroom because it's an AM and PM. So mind you that you could have 40 students in 4K, 20 students in the AM, 20 students in the PM. But we also know that 4K is growing. Our enrollment overall is increasing. We see the increase at Webster, we see the increase at the high school. So that could be a temporary solution before we have to address it again. Ben could talk to that, and so can Alan. We did some analysis when we made that decision, Dave, and we believed at that time for the students to have the best experience would be to be in our.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, we were involved in the conversation.
Yeah, the board supported
As
it.
an option, if that's
Correct.
something you thought about.
And we had heard that, and it also is, and Ben could talk to this, it's a bit of a revenue generator, and it actually impacts the tax levy. Having the students in our system and being able to account those students as 0.6 actually impacts the tax levy and lowers the levy. So having them in our system and counting them as a full FTE, if you will, is advantageous for the district. That's a good question. So that's one of the activities we've been embracing and engaging with over the last month, and we'll continue to monitor that. Brenda is tapped into the elementary schools, middle and high school, so anytime a student enrolls in the system, it's triggered at the, she gets a notification, and we populate a spreadsheet, so then we can, at the end of the week, determine if we need to increase sections or not. So right now at Thorson, we have two grade levels have 4 sections. We have another that's on the bubble, which is 5K, and 5th grade is also on the bubble of becoming 4 sections. 3 sections now of becoming 4 sections. So these options that I mentioned about art on the cart, music on the cart, or an outside trailer to help students is certainly plausible options that we have to consider. Potentially as early as next year, but certainly when you look at the 1920 school year, certainly something we have to consider. Other items on this list, we refined the scope of the long-range master plan project based on the feedback from the survey and feedback from the board, and the board has been a part of that process, and I'll get into greater detail in just a moment. And another item, we are working with the news graphic to develop a series of articles that really does a deep dive on our long-range master plan. And the first article in that series is going to come out, I want to say next week, and it's on school capacity. And so one article, the first article is going to be on school capacity, the second one's going to be on safety and security, and the third, I believe, is going to be on learning spaces. So it's nice to be able to partner with the news graphic and be able to get that accurate information out. And we're glad to be on that. A look ahead, where are we headed? So we'll continue to review sectioning and monitoring enrollments. We have a PNF meeting on July 11th to review possibly a draft resolution, which we'll talk about. Potentially, the July 18th board meeting would be consideration and possible approval of a draft resolution if the board decides we need to move forward with the project. And given what you'll hear tonight, I think there's general, at least consensus that we should certainly consider that and move forward. I think we need to develop a public relations information campaign on the project scope, and that's something that we are preliminarily working on at this time. So, board members, we're going to go a bit more in depth on a few of these items, and some of it is a bit of a reflection and a review, and for the general public it would be good as well. So key project components, 3 areas: teaching and learning, school, student capacity, and safety and security. Those are the 3 areas that we have looked at in the development of the long-range master plan. And when we went and refined the project, we continue to hold true to those 3 areas. A couple milestones just to keep in mind that the first significant investment, this will be the first significant investment in teaching and learning spaces since 2001. Some of our spaces have now been upgraded in 30 years, just a fact. And I want to make sure you knew that. The survey results, all of this is online, but it's good for us to know this, board members, that out of 8,400 surveys sent out, we had a 24% return rate, which is above industry standards. Our community is definitely engaged and supportive of our education here for our students. 60% of those respondents would advise the school board to pursue a referendum. 80% of the respondents believe good schools have a positive impact on their home value. And 88% of the respondents are very satisfied or satisfied with the school district. Bill Foster, when he presented these results, he said these are some of the highest results he's ever seen. And so, again, the past boards have done a remarkable job. Current staff, parents are really supporting the system and the child's education. Very proud of the input that we received.
I think someone likes some clarification.
Oh,
Okay, one of the
so
other
maybe,
questions you had on the survey was, would the people support the referendum as proposed? I don't see what the survey response was on that.
so overall, when you looked at all the respondents, it came in favorable to support the 72-3. That's what the overall response. You can look at it on our website. But I'm going to get to that because when you began to disaggregate some of that data, there was different groups that we looked at more closely. And as we looked at groups more closely, then that overall thumbs up became a bit less thumbs up because there's 2/3 of our population is not connected to our school system. And so when we looked at that population, then it ended up being about 50-50 at 72-3. So the results are on the website. So I'll run through this, and I can certainly engage with the public, Chris, if you want me to continue to do that. Okay. This, we'll have pizzas ordered in and some beverages in it like that for everybody. So another survey piece that I just want to share with you, individual facilities. Across the board, there was general support for us to address the facilities, between 56 and 59%. And that's important because we wanted to look at whether there was overall support for one building and less for another. But what we saw in the results was that there was a general consensus that something needed to be done at all of the buildings. So the project refinement. So at the Building and Grounds Committee on June 7th, the survey results were presented. And at that time, it was determined that the 72-3, it would be a flip of the coin. If we were to go to the general public, it would be a flip of the coin whether they would support it or not. In engaging with the board had felt that we wanted something more, we wanted to be more confident if we're going to go to the public, and they asked the administration and our team to begin to look at the project and see if we could draw that number down. They wanted to maintain a focus on security and safety, they wanted to maintain a focus on learning spaces, and they wanted to maintain a focus on capacity. So at that point, it was determined that those items that didn't fall within those particular categories wasn't a bullseye. We would pull those items out, and we also would pull out capital improvement items. So we began to tweak the plan and pull out things like expansion of the driveways, additional parking at the buildings, those items that would not impact the academic plan. And so we brought back a plan on June 12th, and then we refined even more for the P&F meeting on June 13th. So the directive was to refine the project scope and cost, analyze the tax impact, and then review the potential draft resolution and prepare for that. So those are the 3 areas that we focused on moving forward. And when we started to look at how to draw that number down, there were a couple things that we began to focus on. We wanted to defer the capital replacement projects to our operational budget for the next 4 to 8 years. So if there were asphalt replacement or roof replacement, we wanted to defer that, so pull that out of the plan. We wanted to eliminate projects that did not compromise the overall goals of the plan. So I'll give you an example. Skylights. It was a conversation. We know the impact of natural light on students. There's research out there, but at this point we decided the skylights were not something we wanted in the plan. It could be something that could be attended to later on if we wanted to come back to that. That's just an example. We wanted to utilize existing funding sources to address small, immediate, one-time items. So Fund 50, which is food service, Fund 46, which is that capital improvement account that was set up a few years ago, which would mature, I think, in 2022, which we can pull upon, and then fund balance. So those are the areas that we can potentially draw upon to address some of the capital improvement items. We also reduced the square foot budgeted cost by simply modifying the exteriors and finishes. We wanted to maintain as much green space as possible. This is feedback that we received from the public. Therefore, we eliminated some of the asphalt work and some of the parking expansions. We reduced cost for furniture and equipment. We focused funds on areas of growth and need, so made certain that there was a direct impact on teaching and learning. I mentioned this, removed skylights at Parkview, Thorson, Webster. We eliminated the new drive configurations at West Lawn, Parkview, Thorson, and Webster. And we eliminated the parking configurations at West Lawn, Parkview, Thorson, Webster, and the high school. That's how we were able to draw that plan down, board members. At the P&F meeting, we had brought up number 4, which was about the 61.7, and it included some capital repairs. And the P&F asked us to draw that down again. So we went back to the drawing board. And so where we landed after going through this process was 59.8. So that's removing the vast majority of those capital improvement projects, with the exception of the Parkview roof. The Parkview roof was $600,000. It's a large ticket item. And through the conversation at P&F, it was decided, let's leave that in and see if you could comb the rest of that project and bring that number down under 60.
How old is that roof?
Oh, Ben, I want to say it's 40 years old.
That's up there.
I want to say it's 40 years old. I have to go back in the plan, but it's about 40 years old. Yep.
It's the original?
Parts of the are the original. It's past its life expectancy. So when we drew that number down, the challenge was, when you draw that number down, there's some capital repair projects that are now on the list that need to be addressed. So when you draw this number down, this list increases. And the thinking was, how do we tend to, and how can we address those items on that list? Asphalt repair. The age of some of our asphalt needs to be replaced. There's roof replacement in other buildings. The pool pack, $300,000 to keep our pool water fresh. It's ready to expire. If that shuts down, according to John, we have to drain the pool, a huge expense to get that back up and running. So those are capital improvement projects that were on that list. And so through our conversation with Ben and John and Dan Davis, we were able to look at those items and plan to address those items over the next 4 to 8 years using those funds that I mentioned. So Fund 46, Fund 50, and Fund Balance. Ben, anything to add regarding that?
Yeah, I mean, just talking with John, the priority would be focusing on Fund 46, using that as much as we can. We're setting aside money right now for that. And so really focusing our attention in terms of maintaining that, keeping that as a priority for these things that come up down the road, to make sure we can maintain our fund balance where it is now, because it's kind of where we want it to. And there's other pieces we can put toward that as well. Good example, our LED lights that we put in. We're going to start seeing savings from that we can just put right back into the system and into the budget. So I feel confident talking with John and kind of going through the different pieces that will be set up nicely over the next 8 years or so.
So one of the items we talked about is the energy efficiency as well. So there's some savings there that we could use potentially for the pool pack. Another example. So board members, I think we are in a fairly good position regarding the capital repair projects, I guess you'd call them, and incorporating those into John's 5 to 10 year maintenance plan. And Ben had alluded to Fund 46. If we continue on this road, I suspect by 2022, we may have upwards of about $1 million in that fund.
Yep, that's correct.
So Fund 46, we started that in 2017. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And then what it is for you guys out there is we can put in monies, we can put money away into that fund for capital expenditures, and then we can use it in 2022, right, Jeff?
Yes.
And so that's what we're talking about, Fund 46. So we're keep stocking away money into that fund, and then eventually in 2022, we can start using it to do some of the capital non-learning initiatives that we're talking about. Okay.
Correct, it's 5 years, that fund has to sit idle, you can put money into it, but you cannot draw upon it. I think the board, when we made our first deposit, it was $100. And I wanna say it's upwards of, I think by next year, maybe about 500,000.
This year we made a deposit of 300,000, next year we're budgeting $500,000 deposits.
Doc, maybe Ben could explain the difference between our fund balance and that Fund 46, the advantage we have with that?
Yeah, I mean, we do have a fund balance in our operating fund, that's right around 22% of our operating budget. We use that to maintain cash flow over the course of the year. However, it's not this money sitting there in a savings account that can be drawn upon at any time. It's kind of fluctuates up and down because our revenue comes in, it kind of ups and downs from the state and from the tax levy. So it's at a healthy amount right now that helps our credit rating, and it helps us in case we ever have an emergency that comes up along the line. And so maintaining that is important, and not drawing upon it too much. So having that Fund 46 really designates that money for projects like that, so we have it set aside. When we have to use it, it's ready to go in 2022, and we don't have to worry about the impact it has on our fund balance or our cash flow. So.
So board members, that number sits at 59.8. We were able to maintain the integrity of the long-range master plan, not compromising any of the items regarding safety and security, school capacity, and learning spaces. As you dive into the plan, you can see that we continue to focus on that STEAM concept, that advanced manufacturing, starting at the elementary through middle school, right up to high school. Security and safety is a major issue, so the safety areas, security that would be addressed at all the main entrances at our buildings, that's identified. Really maintain the integrity of the plan at 59.8. So a few more slides that I want to go through. I'm going to let Ben speak to these. They all have to do with the tax impact and financial impact.
Yep, so when we look at 59.8 million as a project cost, the tax impact would obviously go down because it's a smaller amount. At that amount, we'd be looking at a 58-cent tax increase for every $1,000 of home value. So that represents about a 40% reduction in the original project amount, which is right around 98-cent tax impact. That obviously is going down. Just looking at our history of the tax levy, the most recent years, the board's been doing a great job in terms of maintaining a very low rate. As you can see, it's been a lot higher in years past. Even after revenue limits, it was hovering around $11, $12 mill rate. It's kind of hard to see on this, but where we're at now is the third lowest rate over the last 30 or so years. So we're in a very, very good position with our tax levy rate currently. Next slide. I'm just looking over the last 5 years and projecting out what a project like this could do to our tax levy. It would increase, like I said, 58 cents. So that'd be $58 for every $100,000 of home value. That would be the peak of the tax impact. Over time, that tax impact would go down as property values grow and different state aid amounts change. We'd be able to work through that. And basically, looking at some of the assumptions, that 58-cent mill rate impact could go down as if we pursued a referendum that was approved and we went out to bid for different borrows to borrow on debt. The interest rate is a very conservative amount at 4.25%. If that number went down, it would obviously be a lower tax impact on the community. So, and this just compares where we are kind of in the area. We're the second lowest right now in Ozaki. So even with the 58-cent increase, assuming all the other districts remain at their current mill rate, we'd still be the second lowest relative to the other districts.
So board members, any questions regarding the financial information? You've seen this a couple times through your meetings. We knew that number would come down based on the scope of the project, and so now you can see the tax impact. So board members, the next steps would be we would develop a draft resolution with the legal team. We would present that resolution at the July 11th P&F meeting, and then we would bring that forward to the board for potential approval on July 18th, July 18th this July. Additional information, I mentioned it's all available on our website. You can go to the About tab, and the long-range master plan is there, and the enrollment study is there, the traffic study is there, the capacity study, and the survey results are all on that site. As well as an FAQ, there's questions regarding the 4K. To your point, you can find that information on our frequently asked question tab, and there's information about open enrollment and other school capacity funding. That's all on the site. It's always good to end with some smiling graduates who are out there making their way in the world now. So board members, all of you have been involved with this process up to this point, and through B&G, through PNF, and the directive was to look at the plan, comb it, and bring back a plan that do not compromise those three areas, and to address at least one capital repair item, which was the Parkview roof. And we had done that, and we're sitting at 59.8 at this point.
So the next step would be to come to the PNF committee and finalize that number to be forwarded on to the board in July.
So we would bring forward a resolution to July 11th meeting of the PNF with the 59.8 number in there, and then we would bring it to the full board on July 18th for approval.
Okay.
I have just a couple of quick comments. I appreciate the presentation because it answered questions that I had. I had a couple of questions. One was on the capital, and do we have enough money budgeted in those future years to be able to do those capital projects? Because right now, John's done a wonderful job taking care of things, but it's, you know, a small project every year is a way to stay on top of it. I wanted to make sure we had money set aside to do that, and I appreciate, you know, your diligence in looking at that and coming up with that determination. I also am impressed that we set up that Fund 46, and I think that's a great way. I looked at that kind of like a homeowner would look at that and say, we know we need to replace our roof in 5 years, let's start saving for it. And putting money aside instead of waiting to that point in time, say, oh my God, our roof is in terrible condition, what are we gonna do? And I hope the board stays diligent, keep putting money into that every year, because there will be unexpected things that pop up. These are the budgeted ones, but there's always something that comes up that.
You're not going anywhere.
I'm just saying for future boards, for everybody. That to keep that money aside so that you can fund, you know, ongoing maintenance of things that we need to do here, and that we do a great job of. I think everybody keeps always saying this is one of the nicest school districts, and it is. When you go to other school districts, you can see the wear and tear, and we've done a great job keeping on top of that. I hope we can continue to do that. I appreciate everyone's diligence in going through and taking money out of the project, saying we just can't 73.2 or 72. That it's just too expensive. We've got to find ways to bring that back in without impacting the safety of the school district and the learning areas. And I think the group's done a very good job doing that. Very innovative approaches to rethinking things to save money. I don't know necessarily of other items to take out that would not start to impact those other areas. I don't think we're there. In fact, I missed this PNF meeting when you took out some additional funds, so which is great. The board met and found some other areas to take some things out of, which is great. Another $500,000 maybe or something like that, $1 million. So I appreciate everybody's efforts in finding ways to do that. It's the right process.
Thank you, Kevin. I think the board has done a fabulous job of guiding us through that process, and getting the feedback from all of you has allowed us to come to a point where we feel quite confident with this number. If there are to be any additional reductions, we would be talking square footage. So then we would start taking off spaces, and I think that would begin to press on that capacity issue. And so the art on the cart, who's going to cart, a trailer, those types of things would probably be something we do address. There are no other questions?
I just have a comment.
Comment this.
Having a daughter who's a teacher in another state who's teaching in a portable right now, I don't think our parents in Cedarburg would. I went down and I was in her classroom, and she's in a 5th grade classroom with kids jammed into a trailer, and it's not the experience that Cedarburg parents would expect out of the Cedarburg school district. So we never have to get to that point.
Agreed.
I guess I'd add a comment from my perspective. What I've heard from people in the community is that the number is still, I mean, I really appreciate the work that everyone's done on this, and approve a number this high. And we do have one shot here at getting some needs taken care of. So I would encourage us to continue to work on that number.
Anything else? Anyone? All right, then we'll move on. At this time, I'd like to take public comments. Is there anyone from the public, anyone in the audience that would like to speak on any issue at all? Please raise your hand, okay? So I'm going to read a disclaimer here, and then you can approach the mic. In the past, the State Attorney General issued guidance on how governmental bodies, such as school boards, should conduct the public comment portions of their meetings. This guidance was given to assist governmental bodies in avoiding violation of the state's open meetings laws. The essence of this guidance is that unless the topic being brought to the board by the public is listed on that meeting's agenda, no significant discussion can be held on that item. Instead, the topic may be listed as an item on a future meeting agenda, whereby discussion could then be held. The reason for this guidance is not to limit open discussion, but rather to ensure that all interested parties have equal opportunity to participate in the discussions with the full school board. We on the school board encourage community input and want to hear from you, our constituents. However, we take the state's open meeting law seriously and will follow the guidance as outlined by the State Attorney General. Therefore, if an item is listed on tonight's agenda, open dialogue may occur between the individual from the public and board members. If it is not listed, the board will be limited to listening only and will not be able to respond to comments or questions. If your item is not listed on tonight's agenda and you want to have a discussion regarding the topic, you are encouraged to contact the district superintendent and request that your item be listed on a future meeting agenda. As always, you are also encouraged to discuss any issue with individual board members on a one-on-one basis outside of the meeting setting. Please make your comments to the board and not to any individuals in the audience. Please note that this is a public meeting and we ask everyone to address one another with the courtesy and respect that you would like to receive in return. When you approach the microphone, please state your name and address for the record, and as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will be broadcast on the YouTube channel. Thank you. So, it's all yours.
My name is Robert Wardlow, 6505 Chicory Court, Town of Cedarburg. First question that I have is, for the survey responses that came in, you said 24% were positive. How much, what was the breakout between school district employees and the general public?
Sure, so the 24 respondents were, that's the percentage that we received
Total
in
responses, yes.
responses. It wasn't necessarily
And
for or
what-
against, it was just the total number of respondents was 24% out of the 8,400.
And what was the breakout between
So-
employees and public?
Yeah, so if you have, I can share that board members if you like, I can project that so you can see that.
Sure.
Brenda, will you fire that up for me? I think I can sit right here, actually.
Well, he's looking
So-
at it, it was right around 100 when you met, but they said we're actual school district employees. That's all that, those 100. He'll tell you, he'll tell you in a second.
It's just over 2,000 respondents, yeah. So 24% of 8,400 is right around 2,000. And when they looked at the results, they did disaggregate all that information. And to Linda's question in the back, she's, there she is. So we did look at all the different groups and disaggregated the information, because we didn't want the results to be obviously skewed one way or the other, because the general population out in our community, 2/3 of them have no connection to our system. So you need to give a bit more weight to those when you're doing the analysis, and that's what you'll see in the results there.
One other comment is anytime they have a tax impact question for the survey, they remove anyone that doesn't live in the district. So if I'm a staff member, I don't live in Cedarburg, your vote is still in there, but it doesn't count towards our aggregate amount, because obviously.
So this information is on our website, and it was presented to the full board in an open meeting. It was a building grounds meeting. And here's the information, and I'll walk through them very quickly if you like, and maybe your questions would be addressed, and maybe some others in the community. So you can see that there were 2007 respondents, and 609 of them were paper. They had the option of doing it online and or in a paper version, and that's a 24% response rate. Respondent information, so what is your age? So this is just general information, and you can see the breakdown. I'm just going to walk through this so you get a general sense of what this looks like, and you can certainly go online. It's all available. You can dive deeper in that. Do you live in Cedarburg Area School District? So you can see the population that does and doesn't. And some would say, well, what about that 9%? So all parents who have kids attending our system receive the survey. So for example, open enrollment parents receive it. Non-taxpayers receive it, so it's important that we segregate those out of the results. And then we went into which city or township do you reside in, and so our school district jets into all those different areas. Other would be, if you see in the middle, 5%, that would be, for example, open enrollment. Are you a Cedarburg School District employee? So when we say employee, that would be teachers, that would be support staff, custodians, anyone who's associated with the school system. School board. Do you have children attending our schools? If you have school-age children, what schools do they attend? Overall, what impact do you believe the Cedarburg School District has on our overall, your home value? I shared this information slide, so how would you like to receive school district information? Important for us to know where they get the information from. And whether it's email, whether it's from the school website, district mailings, school newsletters. You see the news graphic is on there as well. Good information for us. How satisfied are you with the school district? Financial background. So just a general question regarding if the public chooses to address these needs, the primary way to obtain the funding is through a referendum. What advice would you give the school board? So now you can see you have residents in the blue, you have staff in the red, parents, non-staff, and non-parents, non-staff in the purple. So that purple group would be the group that non-parents, non-staff, so really no connection to our system, about 2/3 of our voters. Dan, if I'm misspeaking, jump in and correct me. Dan, you've been a part of this. Dan Davis is part of our team. You can certainly join in, or Alan, or Ted, or any of the board members if you have this presentation. Share it too as well.
The only point I would add was that you can see there's a portion that's not sure, need more information, and we get to the financial question, you'll see that same breakdown. There's that portion that's not sure, need more information. And so kind of the rule of thumb in the market is that you take of those not sure people, typically about 1/3 will go yes and 2/3 will go no. And so that's how we got to our breakdown. We showed in the slide of taking that breakdown.
Your original question was only staff took the survey, was that 3 slides ago, so it was 259 yesterday.
Yes, it was considered higher.
But many of those live in the district,
Right.
so they have a right to do that, of course.
That's fine.
Right.
I just wanted to.
Yeah, it was 100 residents and 200.
There's 100 residents, because we did, the number I gave you, because they told us there was 100 residents, and we didn't count them in the final percentages to be the coin flip. They left them out, and I questioned why you left them out if they're being cast. So that's why I knew it was 109 or something.
So if you have other questions pertaining to this,
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I'll stop.
So what is the driving factor for the referendum for these improvements? Is it increasing class capacity, increasing more school classrooms?
Board members, any of you
Yeah, I
can
can
address
I
it,
can
I
jump
can
in.
address it. but-
There's been what we tracked initially was number of approved subdivisions in our community, in the town of Cedarburg, in the Cedarburg School District. And we looked at the number of new subdivisions and apartments. We looked at existing subdivisions and how many residents in a home, how many students do we generally have in a home? We looked at that data, and also for apartments. And for apartments, we've gone very very few students, so we lowered our expectations on apartments. But it's almost over one student per household. So if a 96 lot subdivision is approved, we're assuming about 96 students will come when the subdivision is built out. There's a lot of subdivisions getting built currently, as you know, if you drive around town, and there's more that are already approved, not planned. We didn't include planned subdivisions. We only included approved subdivisions. And since it takes several years, as was mentioned before, it would take us about, if we started now, it would take us about 2 years to accomplish it. We have no drawings done, no plan specifications, things like that, and the actual construction time. It will take about 2 years to accomplish that.
What's been the historical? Because we live in a new subdivision.
And we
When I
do have
look
that
at
data.
the student enrollments over the last 20 years almost, back in the early 2000s, from 2000 to 2010, the grades in the upper levels were maxing out at 300 students, a little over 300. And I'm seeing now, in the past 2010 through 2018, in the low 200s. They're going to be matriculating up through the higher grades. Where's the lack of classroom space? I don't see it.
That's pretty typical to see that, the lower amounts of the lower grades, because what we pick up as they come up through the grades is private school students that start to attend the high school or the middle school, and so you can see that uptick. So for example, our 4K class is about 150, but our incoming freshmen is going to be right around 300. And so we just kind of see that gradually grow as they get in higher and higher grades. So where we stand right now, we increased enrollment from last year, this year, and we're already projecting to increase enrollment for next year. In terms of historical trends for what we look at for subdivisions, birth rates, all that, we looked at probably like 13 years ago, about 10 years ago, in terms of what was on the books for subdivisions, in terms of approved, planned. There was about 3 planned subdivisions about 10 years ago, and that was it. And so very little development at that point. And so we're definitely seeing an uptick in terms of 16 approved subdivisions that are actually being built and are at different stages of actually completion, where some of them are halfway done, some are 10% done. And so that's really what we're looking at in terms of and how we use that to project out for the next couple of years.
And those numbers are also a function of our total enrollment in class sizes as dictated by board policy. And really that, to me, is the quality of our district, is maintaining, a reasonable class size. So when we're taking these enrollment numbers and we're projecting them forward in the space we need, it's to keep our product, if you will, the same, not increasing those class sizes, not overcrowding classrooms. So that's where we're coming from, the need for more space. If that makes sense.
If I could add to that, I don't know if you attended Cedarburg. I did graduate from here 40 years ago this year. And at that point in time, we had 300 students in my graduating class. The difference I see now than what was offered 40 years ago is we have a lot more class offerings at the high school, a lot more AP courses, advanced placement courses, that we didn't have when I went to school here. But I think that's one of the things that give us the very high ratings that we've got. As we've heard from Riveridge tonight, kids who are interested in science courses can really delve into very deep science courses. Kids who are going to college, I have 3 kids who graduated from here, but they would go to college with college credits. They pass out of classes because they've taken the advanced courses here, chemistry courses, math courses, things like that. That's a really great thing that we didn't have 40 years ago. We had the shell of the building. In fact, it was even smaller back then. We didn't have the science wing that we have now. But I think the reason we're not a good high school, that I believe we're a great high school, is because of those class offerings, and you need classrooms to do that. Way more than we had when you go back many years ago, far more.
I don't disagree that we need the space for the students, but you can subdivide the space more efficiently. Movable partitions, et cetera. And I guess the last thing I would say, Rick, I did go to a school that had those trailers. Didn't affect me one bit. It probably affected the teacher more than it affected carry out trailers. They're a good way to shave off piece. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda Smith, North 32, West 7367, Lincoln Boulevard. I was a teacher in Cedarburg. I taught at West Lawn, 5th grade, from 1970 to 1982. Kevin was one of my first 5th grade students. I have some real concerns about this whole proposal. First of all, in our meeting at the library, you said that we have 140 students that we're educating under open enrollment that come into our district, which costs Cedarburg taxpayers an additional $3,000 per year that's not covered by state funding, which comes to about $500,000 a year that we're paying for these kids to come in from other districts to get our great education. Will those students now be sent back to their home districts so that we have the extra capacity until we do a referendum? Or will those students be allowed to stay?
That's a great question, and there's information on that on our website under FAQ. We can talk a couple different pieces. I think financially, let's get the numbers correct, and I'm going to defer to Ben, who will give you the correct numbers on how open enrollment impacts our district financially. Go ahead, Ben.
Any student that's open enrolling into the district we get a direct payment from the other district they're coming from. So if the student lives in Grafton, wants to open enroll into Cedarburg School District, and they're approved to come in, Grafton pays us it's gonna be $7,300 for 18-19 for the year to educate the student.
And it costs over $10,000 a year to educate a student in Cedarburg.
That's the cost per member, yep.
Yep, so that's $3,000 extra that we're making up the difference for. You're asking these taxpayers to pay for kids who don't even live in this district. And that's not fair, so send those kids back to their home districts. We shouldn't have to pay for them. We'll pay for our own students, but we don't have to pay for kids from outside the district. Now, going to capacity, in 1970, when I started teaching, we were educating 480 kids at West Lawn. 480 kids. Today we educate 240 kids at West Lawn each year, and that building has been added on to since 1970. I can't believe that we have a capacity issue at West Lawn, and yet we're going to add more space to West Lawn. The same thing is true at Parkview and Thorson. We had 105 more kids at Parkview and Thorson, each school, in 1970 than what we're educating today, with smaller schools. So we don't have a capacity issue. We have a want issue. We want more space. Now, you've proposed adding new gyms at all 3 elementary schools. As far as I know, those gyms are tall, and they're certainly large enough for 20 kids to play at during gym class. If we need to add cafeterias, how about adding a cafeteria at each school? That takes much less space, would cost a whole lot less than adding a new gym. You don't need the height in a cafeteria that you have in a gymnasium. So let's look at that. That would be a huge cost savings. I think you need to get some creative minds in to look at some of this. You talk about collaboration and all the collaboration you do in the classrooms. Well, we had it going on in the 70s also. It was called group projects. And we didn't have any extra space. The kids did it by turning their desks around or pulling their chairs over to a corner of the room. Rooms which are much smaller than the rooms we have currently. And we currently, in 1970, through the 80s and the 90s, we had 27 to 30 kids in each classroom, not 20 as we currently have. So I think our kids are pampered, our parents are pampered. Let's get realistic. If a teacher can't handle 25 kids in a classroom versus 20 kids, there's something wrong. And going to the birth rate, the last 2 years, we've had the lowest birth rate in history since 1987. So birth rate isn't driving all these new proposals. And you have to take a look at how many seniors are currently living in their homes. We don't have as many kids coming out of Cedar Point and some of these older subdivisions that we did. So you need to take a look at, are your birth rates and number of kids per home accurate, or is it just guesstimates? And also, I would like to address the fact that the TIF district that was approved for the St. Francis Borgia project in February stated that the school district had no new capacity needs, that there were no capacity issues in the schools. And that was the information that was given to the city, is that we don't need to expand our schools. Therefore, it's okay for the city to approve a $2 million TID district for the St. Francis Borgia apartments that are being built right at this time. I think it's up to the school board to now ask the city to rescind that $2 million TID district that was approved in February, and that was based on your statement at the Joint Review Board that we did not need any new capacity in the public schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just a few points of clarification on a few items. I'll go back with the open enrollment, just to be clear. We do have a plan that would ratchet down open enrollment as our district enrollment increases. We use open enrollment very strategically. This year we only opened up 8 seats. And when I say we use it very strategically, if you have a class section or 2 classes that are, or a class that's growing to the upper 30s, 35 for example, it makes sense to break that into 2 sections, and then you can pepper in some open enrollment to get to a critical mass. That's how open enrollment is used in the district. When you look at the number that we accept across all grade levels, 4K through 12th grade, it boils down to about 1 student per class across the district, a very minimal number. I think we accept about 6% of our population is open enrollment. If you look at our surrounding districts, it's double digit. It's 11, 12, 13%. So we're extremely conservative on how we use open enrollment. We strategically use it, and it generates revenue for us in order to maintain some of the programs that we offer. Just for clarification. The other piece that I wanted to clarify is you had mentioned that all the buildings are getting gyms. That is not the case. There are gyms going in proposed, and it's a multi-purpose space at Thorson and Parkview, and at West Lawn there's actually a cafeteria being proposed. So it's not a gym being added at West Lawn. Just for clarification. Ben, did you have an item?
The only thing to add with open enrollment, when we add one open enrollment student, it doesn't necessarily our cost go up by 10,000. Like Todd said, we're adding them strategically into a classroom where we already added a section because of resident enrollment growth. So important point there. Also with open enrollment, we have about 50 students who open enroll out of the district, and for those students we have to pay that other district about $7,000. So taxpayers in Cedarburg are paying $7,000 to educate a student in another district. So that's another piece of that open enrollment program that's just part of it, and giving the parents choice to go to a district of their preference.
So you're saying it only costs $7,000 to educate a student in Cedarburg per student?
On average, no, it's by 10,000. I'm saying.
So where is that $3,000 difference being made up if it's not being made up by the taxpayers?
Through state aid and the tax levy.
If I could also add to this, the process works as being explained, but let me try to explain it too. If we have 22 students or 20 students in a classroom, to add another student to that classroom has no additional cost to the district. We get $7,000 of income. We went from 20 to 21. It's when you add a whole teacher, that's where, when you add an additional teacher, that's where your costs come into play. But to add it, to go from 20 students in a room to 21, probably has 0 cost to the district. Certainly $7,000, it's way less than $7,000. I believe anecdotally, I don't have evidence to do that, but that's kind of the mathematics that's used. And each year, we go through as a board and look at what grade level, at what school we have capacity, and we'll say, was it 8? Okay, 8 throughout the district. So, okay, 3rd grade at Westlawn, we can add 1 student there because we have, let's say, 21 students, and 22 we don't think is overcrowding, so we'll add them that way. So that's kind of the math behind it. So we look at it a little differently than just, we're losing $3,000 a student. We're looking at it, where can we add a student that really doesn't cost us anything and is accretive, actually, to the district.
Right, what you're doing is you've got your fixed costs in the room. And if you add a student or take away a student, the fixed costs stay the same. So when you're adding an open enrollment, if it works in class size, you're adding the revenue without increasing your fixed costs. So it's, while the 10,000 number is an average, we're strategic about adding these open enrollment seats.
So Ben, let me ask you this, if we did not add the student, the open enrollment student, here, there, the one where we feel necessary here and there, actually that would decrease our aid and we'd have to have a higher tax base. Is that an easy way to say that? Because our fixed cost is not gonna change, but our revenue will be smaller if we didn't have the open enrollment where we plug in the 1 student.
Yes, that's correct. Yep. Factor in our shared costs. That's correct.
And perhaps another way to think of it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but if we didn't reach the critical masses of students at each level, because those fixed costs are the same, our per pupil cost would actually be higher than it is currently. We're just sort of diluting the pool and actually, in effect, lowering the amount, the average amount that it costs to educate a student. And on your TID comment, the school district did not vote to support that, and I openly hear in meetings that I wouldn't support it. That was the other people involved in that approved it, so the district did not vote in favor of that TID.
And just 2 clarifying comments. Westlawn enrollment, you said it was 240. We had it at 330 for this year for student enrollment at Westlawn. The other point with birth rate, 2015 was actually the highest birth rate for the city of Cedarburg since 2000. We had 141 births, and before that, it's the highest amount we've seen from the Department of Health since the year 2000. So, just to clarify things.
Christine Sameka, 2460 Covered Bridge Road in the town of Southfield, live in Cedarburg. Also a product of the Cedarburg Public Schools. I'm just curious about one thing. The Parkview roof is 40 years old. So did someone over the past 40 years say we might need a new roof at Parkview at some point? I mean, shouldn't that have been planned for?
John Coster isn't here today, I don't think, he's a maintenance guy, but generally, there's little projects I've observed at the schools every summer, like roof patching here and there, or a little area that gets done. I don't have the facts on it, so we can get.
But I'm just curious, you know, when you say, okay, the roof now is 40 years old, or when it got to 30 years old, someone might have said, maybe we should be putting some money away, I mean, like, you know, the taxpayers do.
And I can tell you that in 2015, we were told that, and that's truly what started this whole discussion of long-range master plan, because the board said, if we have these things that we aren't aware of that are gonna be coming up that we need to replace, we need to start planning for that. And that's how
Right,
this whole
I'm just
process
curious why
started.
someone wasn't planning for it
And
over the
John,
last
it was
40
Chris,
years.
and the example, the Fund 46, I think it's later tonight. Fund 46 is this fund that was kind of mentioned before, that we can put money into it and use it for capital improvements.
Yeah,
I
is that
think-
new? Is that
No,
new?
it's a new, the state just allowed it, what, a couple years ago?
Probably 2 or 3 years old.
So we've started to fund that and for future projects like that. And tonight, I believe, there's an item to add a couple,
For the preliminary budget, yeah.
preliminary budget is, what's the dollar amount there?
$500,000 deposit
I'm
for
sorry?
$500,000.
$500,000. And the roof cost is $600,000?
Yeah.
So in theory, we could do it that way too. We
Okay,
could say,
but
you know,
I mean,
that-
just in terms of
we do
all
save the money for
maintenance,
that,
you know,
right.
of all these
Absolutely.
buildings,
Yeah,
every
right.
year something's gonna come up.
And it is done kind of like a homeowner does, if we look for that and say, okay, we plan ahead, what are we gonna need to do next year? And then there's always the unexpected things like homeowners have to
Of
do.
course.
It's very
Well,
similar to that.
save for that too.
So we
Okay.
do budget for those. Good question.
And I'll just mention, it's a great question, and you look at the overall plan that's proposed, it's not a plan to address maintenance, to The only capital improvement item in there is the one that you're drawing attention to, which is the roof replacement. And districts do have a 5 to 10-year maintenance plan that they work off of, and with revenue caps in place, they have to manage those funds. And so sometimes a roof can be patched, a section of the roof, and not replace the entire roof. So we have roofs that have been strategically patched, if you will, over the years, and at some point it just comes due. And the same thing with asphalt. I have to applaud the board, and you're sitting in a facility that has been, look how well it's been maintained. We're not in a facility where there's leaking pipes, ceiling tile that are falling, and there's cracked or crumbling asphalt. The district has done a wonderful job in maintaining the buildings, but you do get these larger ticket items, $600,000, that you have to plan for it. It's difficult to put all that money aside when you have other pressing costs. It's a great question.
Also, just for John Foster, he told us, mind you, in 2015, that we're gonna need a new roof in 2020. So we have enough time. Like Kevin said, we're putting away the $500,000, and we put away some more monies, and we're gonna put away some more money next year into this fund. But we could very well use that money, if we wanted to go right to the roof and pay for it in cash, if you will. So, to be fair to John, he told us a long time ago about this roof, and he gave us plenty of time to save for it. And the way we're doing it is, kind of contingent on this potential referendum, but if it doesn't work out, we also have a fund, 46, to pay for it. If that makes sense.
Jacob Curtis, 306 West Lilac Lane, Grafton, which is obviously a part of the Cedarburg School District. Just, I guess, an observation. I appreciate all the work everybody puts in here. It's obviously, you guys have put a lot of time and effort. I do wish the process was more honest. I frankly find it somewhat disingenuous. I've observed a lot of these processes statewide. It's clear there's kind of a plan to put out a number and then go to a survey, and then, frankly, Mr. Bugnacki, you said, it's 50-50, so now we have to ratchet the number down. That's not how certainly taxpayers run their homes. I served on the Gonzaga County Board for 4 years. While I can't say we have a zero-based budgeting process, there were certainly capital projects that were incorporated into the budget, and we had a very honest number that we went to the taxpayers with. So already, within a few months of really the big public push, we've gone from 72.3 million down to 59.8. I look at the survey, we have kind of this arbitrary line at 2013. That's kind of like the magic number, that's the mill rate we can go up to. And so presumably that's the $72.3 million number. And now, with the public support of maybe 50-50, we pulled it back down to 60. I would think in a process like this, and my kids, so we have, my wife and I have 3 children, we homeschool, but so we recognize we have to pay our share into the community. But when I hear things like, well, we started at 72 and now we're going down to 59 because we removed skylights, that doesn't strike me as an honest process. Go to the public with what you need. And again, we've already now cut out almost $11 million. That leads me to believe that there, as one of the previous speakers noted, there was kind of what we really, really would want and what we can get. This isn't a negotiation. I practice law. I've been involved in a lot of pretty major negotiations. These are your taxpayers. Just be honest with us. And again, the proof's in the numbers here. You're viewing this as, a negotiation, like we would in a business transaction. These are your taxpayers. So be honest with what you need. I frankly, when I was on the county board, our process, and I know there's a county board member here, we had a process, a capable of expenditures, and we had a number. In my 4 years, we never came down on a bond because we thought we could maybe get a little out of the taxpayers, but when we realized we might get some pushback, we pull it back. I don't think it's a fair process. I don't think it's frankly a transparent process. I know there's a lot of information out there, and you guys have done a wonderful job making a presentation tonight. But frankly, the average taxpayer, they're living their life, and if you just would go with an actual number on what this district needs, frankly, I think it would be a lot better project. And again, having served in a public role, I was frankly always uncomfortable with the push to get a unanimous vote. I would hope and I appreciate Mr. Creer's willingness to speak out. I hope there are more members that are willing to listen to the taxpayers. And again, you're here, taxpayers are here, and I appreciate everything you guys do. I know it's not the most glamorous work. So I guess this is more of a process observation that as you move forward, be honest with the taxpayers on what this district actually needs, and I think you get a better response. Thank you.
Jake, just so you know, majority of those items that were pulled out were capital. They were the other items that we thought we could do on buildings to get them to where we wanted to be without having to hit fund balance and things like that. And that's, at that point, we were looking, even before the questionnaire went out, we were looking each time at where can we cut. We kept asking the consultants, where else can we cut this? So it was an ongoing process. It's just when do you put out the survey and when do you do things, because you have a limit on when to do those for an election. And we said we wanted, if it was going to go to a referendum, we wanted it to go in November when we have a bigger turnout than trying to hide it on a small election.
I have one more comment for Jake. If you'd have attended any of these small committee meetings, that's where the heavy lifting is done, you would have heard 6 board members talking about, really do we need this? What can we live with? Really focusing on the benefits of health education. And so I'm a little taken back, Jake, that you threw that at us, because there's 6 members that were here at 7 in the morning, we were here late at night, and we were talking about that. Because we didn't say anything tonight does not mean that we were not looking at that, okay?
Well, okay, first of all, I mean, if you're an elected representative, that's what
Correct.
you're elected to do.
I'm not stating that.
I'm here on my time to make the comments and make some observations. And again, the proof is in the numbers that were initially released, the items that have been removed. So clearly, there was presumably a process in place whereby there was an initial list, and just like a negotiation, you're gonna have items that you're going to give on openly.
I don't think negotiation, we never said that, that's your word.
Yes.
Not
Right,
being
that's
honest,
my
that's
word.
your
I'm saying that's what this
Disingenuous
looks
is your
like.
word. Transparent, not being transparent, those are all things you're saying. And
I realize that.
we're anything but that. We have countless meetings, they're public, we put it online. I mean, I understand your concerns, but, to say that we're not being honest with the public, and that we had a list, and we somehow thought that we would go from 72 down to something, and here's a list of stuff we take off. We thought
This was happening.
that doesn't mean that that's how it happened, right? That's what you're saying. You're saying that we went through this process and this negotiations. We heard from the public that they did not like that number, right? Now, whether it's a 50-50 coin flip that the 72 million passes or not, what that tells me is.
Those are
Right, I'll say it too. I'll say it too.
Yeah.
And to me, what that means is the number's too high, and we have to get it lower. That's all that means to me.
If I could add to that, I give you my word, as an individual, there was no gamesmanship here or a disingenuous approach to this. We looked at it as the things that we desired for the school district. I was one of the people who worked on that. It's things that we took out were things like an acceleration lane on 76th Street, so cars, safety issue. We looked at it and talked about, we haven't had an accident there, let's not do that. We haven't seen an accident there. We're taking those types of things out. Would it be nice to have? Yes, might be a little safer for people, but we didn't see it as a critical issue, so we took those types of things out. It was never, it was never an issue where we said, we're gonna start, I know you distrust the process, but I'm giving you my word. That it was never an issue where we said, we're gonna go out at 72 million, we're gonna do a survey, see what happens, and then we're gonna come out with this other number. That was not the case. In fact, after the surveys came back, we meet on Tuesday mornings at 7 a.m. generally here, that are open to the public, and I know you got a profession, you got to work at too, but we meet and go through that, and we started saying then, and I looked at it and said, one of the factors, we had 88% of the people in our district think highly of the school district. That's a huge goodwill number.
I feel that the survey nights at the same time.
Right, and I think that's wonderful. Well, I'm not criticizing you, I'm just trying to
I was
explain.
part of the 88%.
Okay, I'm just trying to explain the process. I look at that and say, we have huge goodwill in our district. People like our school district, they trust us. That's why I do kind of take some umbrage when you suggest that it was something was fixed and the fix was in and it's in the numbers. That wasn't the case. I'll be totally honest with you, that was not the case. You might feel that way, but I can't help that. But I know what the process was, and it was very open and transparent as we could do. The website, we tried to always populate things on the website, hoping people would see it, the FAQs that people raise, get that information out to people. We tried to be as open and transparent as we could.
No, and I appreciate that, but I guess, so if you look at the gap, this 52 to the 72 to the 59, clearly, and you all alluded to the fact that work has taken place to whittle that number down. I guess the question would be why, and so presume there's a process in place, elements that you applied in order to bring that number down. Why was that not done initially? Because in the survey didn't ask for respondents, to go item by item. Which item do you think is necessary? Which do you think is kind of frivolous? So to use the example we have, there wasn't respondents saying we don't need skylights, and therefore you responded to the data and pulled that item out.
There were comments. We took the comment section. There were comments that said, "What do you need skylights? They don't need it." So we took them out.
I mean, and that's a great example. Skylights is a great example. I looked at it, at Parkview and Thorson, we have interior classrooms that have no daylight at all. Would it be good for a student, third grader, to see the daylight during their day, except for going to recess? Yeah, it would be great. But we felt, after the numbers came back and it was a coin toss, that was truly the words used, it's a complete coin toss. And I felt that the goodwill we have in our district, we need to take things out that would be nice to have. And if I had a student in that classroom and they never got daylight, I'd probably be sending an email to the school that's, why didn't my child get in that classroom? I wanted them to have one on the exterior walls. So those types of things.
And I
we
want my
took
comments to
back.
be, I'm kind of surprised you're taking offense. I guess the point is, there clearly is a difference in, that 73 million is a public number, right? That wasn't some internal number. That's the number that was in the survey.
Right.
And now within the matter of 2 months, that number is being reduced by 11 million.
Right.
I mean, it's human nature. The public is going to wonder, well, how have we already reduced it that much? Why was 59 not the original number that was put out in the survey?
Because we felt that we needed everything in the 72, and I still do, to accomplish what we did. But clearly, the public doesn't. So we're listening to them.
And to clarify, there have been crashes on Wauwatosa Road at that intersection, at that driveway. There have been multiple, but we haven't had any serious crashes, no injuries, and they're not to the level that the board said we absolutely have to do that. We said, maybe we do that 5 years down the road using capital money that we've been putting away, saving for, hoping that we don't have anything serious. But there have been crashes at that. I just want to make sure everybody knows that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for your comments, for sure.
Heidi Morgan, 830 Corns Corners Road in Cedarburg. I agree with Mr. Greer that we can do better to lower this referendum. I don't think any of us want schools that are falling apart. We'd like them to be well maintained. We like to have excellent educators, and I mean, to me, the educators and the curriculum are huge. They're so much bigger than if I have a balcony or a special way up to stairway. So some of those things that I read about, I could do without, and I'd rather have the fine teachers that my children were able to experience. 2 of my kids were in 2003, 4 when we actually had more students in the district than we have now, and they had a wonderful education here. They had enough space. They had just tremendous teachers, and the curriculum, I can't say enough about it. I'm very thankful that they were able to come here and be in a school that was well maintained, and everything wasn't the latest and the greatest that way, but the emphasis was on their education, and they got a fine one. And I'm most grateful for that, and I want that to continue for the children that are coming up now in my golden age. So I just want to say that, and I think that we can do better to lower that referendum for the things that we really, truly need, far as building projects, and just keep our focus on the excellence in education. Thanks.
Thanks.
My name is Nina Walker. My address is W70 N1018 Hampton Court here in Cedarburg. Live in Parkview Meadows. We've been residents of Cedarburg for over 40 years. And I want to compliment this school board. You've got your work cut out for you. Your past school boards have made this school district fantastic. This, according to what I know, this senior class had the highest cumulative grade point in the state of Wisconsin. That doesn't come from your biggest school rooms. That comes from the teaching in this school system. My children, we raised three boys, have been in this school system since kindergarten on up. They have wonderful teachers. Well, there's a clinker here and there, but you know, they all did very well in school and out of school, and participated in school. And I will say one thing, Mr. Kennedy, our other Mr. Kennedy also built a bike path to Parkview to save money so they wouldn't have to bus the kids, so the kids could ride their bikes. That's conservatism. That's looking at the budget. Now, I realize that wasn't a big thing now, but kids can still ride their bikes to school. People build homes in the school districts in Parkview. When we moved here, we wanted to be in the Parkview School District. We were told by people who live here, you want to be in the Parkview School District at this point. That was 40 years ago, okay? And we bought a home. We didn't stay in that home because there were only 4 homes for sale in the whole city of Cedarburg. We bought one in the Parkview School District. We still live in it. We moved across the street. And so we still are in the Parkview School District. I will say this. Your work is cut out for you. We live in a pretty conservative community when it comes down to it. You need to sharpen your pencils. My husband was a county supervisor here for 15 years. The county board sharpens their pencils. I'm very serious about this. Sometimes they're too parsimonious, actually. And sometimes they wait until there's a real need that they have to do something. But having said that, I'm hoping you're going to have a referendum in this community. I'm hoping when you do have the referendum that you pull out all the stops with this clear what we need to the community, and you will get it passed. But you're really going to have to show the community what the difference is between needs and wants. And you have to remember, it's in the teaching. You have to remember your spaces have to be for teaching the best you can do. Now I know my kids were over at Parkview and then in Webster where they had all the mishmash and all the different whatever, and never left 10% for the kids who learn in a structured situation. I've been a teacher for 60 years. I've taught adults, I've taught children, and I'm a jail educator. Our jail students are in a room. They have no windows, I might add. We have 10 students in a very small room, and they are learning. It's books and teaching, and they can't leave the room, okay? And they can't take the supplies with them. So it's books and teaching, and I think our community knows this, that teaching is the most important thing that we have, is that are good teachers. And I'm all for, if you've got extra money, let's give the teachers a raise. And the other thing I would like to see you do is hire some school counselors, not guidance counselors. Guidance counselors. There are other school systems that are beginning to have their guidance counselors eat with the kids down in the elementary schools and know their families so that we don't have suicides. That the guidance counselors know their children, they eat lunch with their children, they know their families, and we need to do this. Right now, our counselors are career counselors. They're not guidance counselors. Your students don't go to the career counselors if they think they're gonna commit suicide. Because they're not gonna talk to them about that, and career counselors are not equipped to do that. So I think you should look at, as a school board, if you're gonna spend some money, hire some guidance counselors. So I think you, again, need to sharpen your pencils, and I really commend you for all the work, because I know, being married to a county board supervisor, all the work that you put in with committee meetings and all the work that you do. So keep up the good work, but do sharpen your pencils, so that the community trusts you, because you're transparent, and that if you say this is what we need, then they'll know this is what we need, not just once, okay? So thank you.
Thank you.
Nina, you'd be real happy to know though, we added more school psychologists instead of counselors this last year.
There's one in every school now.
There's one in every school.
There's a psychologist in every school now.
Good. You need it. We need it.
Comments break. My name is Toby Newberger. I'm at 409 Lindale Drive, and I echo a lot what Nina said, and Heidi and Jake. You guys do an awesome job. We have 6 children. Our daughter just graduated from Cedarburg High. It was our only experience at the public school. It was fabulous. So I greatly appreciate all the work through the years of watching the school board, and appreciate your conservative perspective. I do hope that you can sharpen your pencils, which what Nina said about the quality product that you turn out is so true, and it comes from the heart of what your teachers do and the school board does, and doesn't necessarily, have to cost this much more money. I haven't heard a defining reason like you must have more space. When my husband and I built our house, we've been here for 18 years. We had 3 kids. The Lord blessed us with 3 more. You didn't change anything. You make things work. You put kids together. They weren't happy, but it didn't change the quality of what the family was. And I think there are opportunities, with the 4K, if you have to move them off-site, that isn't the worst thing in the world. I agree that communal togetherness is great, but I think there's options that you might be able to explore further that would save the taxpayers. When I saw the survey and it said, this $100 for 20 years, that was a lot of money. Now, I appreciate that it's come down a lot, but 20 years is a long time to pay this off if our enrollment isn't sustained that long, which it may or may not be. We are, in a birth rate decline. People are coming to Cedarburg, so it could, balance it out. I just haven't heard the need that we need that much money spent. I do have one question. Our children do go to the Catholic schools, and when we do something, we have to fundraise. Is there opportunities, because people are so connected to the community, to get donors who say, all right, I'll donate $5 million, and, to give back? We certainly have those people around. Has that ever been talked about, approached? And that might, there are those hearts out there, and that would reduce the overall, that's how we do it. So I don't know if it's ever been talked about. I don't know if you do that in the public arena, but it might be worth. We're very blessed that we want to give back. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is John Hermson, and I live at 6397 West Pioneer Place in Brown Deer. I know you're not planning on discussing retirement benefits at tonight's meeting. And I know that Todd sent an email to staff recently that the district is reconsidering some of its proposals based on feedback that it recently received. I still thought it was important to address you tonight so that you hear my thoughts prior to having those discussions. As many of you know, I've taught science at the middle school for many years. Since I'm getting close to retirement, I was very interested last year when the district announced it was looking into changing retirement benefits. I attended the informational meeting in March of 2017 and learned the district did not have a specific plan in place at that time, but they would be investigating their options. Last October, having heard nothing from the district about their plans, I emailed Ben Irwin. This is the response I got. Nothing has been board approved as of yet, and the board still stands by their stance of giving at least a 1-year notice for any changes they decide to make. What that means is that the earliest any change could take effect would be July 1st, 2019, since we already have passed the 1-year window for July 1st, 2018. What that means is that retirees will be eligible to retire under the current plan at the end of both 2017-18 and 2018-19. Ben's response was also CC'd to Todd Bubnacki and Conrad Farner. Since neither one of them replied to that, I assume they also agreed with his statement and that the board stood by their commitment to give at least a 1-year notice, and that retirees would still be eligible to retire under the current plan until the end of 2018-19. I thanked him for his response and also passed his response on to several other interested staff members. We were all relieved that we had some time before we had to make a decision and before any change would affect us. I was obviously very surprised when I read the district's proposal just a few weeks ago that included the elimination of early retirement under age 59. According to the proposal, if a person were currently age 54 and planning on retiring under the current plan at the end of 2018, 2019, they would no longer be able to do so. I know of at least one person in that situation, and there may be others. That is a major change in the retirement plan without a 1-year notice. I'm asking the board to stick by its original commitment and allow any eligible teacher to retire by the end of next school year under the current plan. I would like you also to reconsider the entire idea of eliminating retirement benefits before age 59. While it often makes sense for a person to wait at least until age 59 to retire, you don't know what kinds of circumstances might factor into that decision. They may need to retire to care for a sick family member, they themselves may be facing some health issues, there could be any number of things going on that might necessitate a person choosing to retire before age 59. According to Ben and Todd, the main reason for making these changes is to need to reduce the long-term cost of retirement benefits. I'm not sure that forcing a person to work for 4 extra years in order to receive benefits will save you any money. In fact, the opposite may be true. Since that person would probably get the same benefit if you allowed them to retire at 55 versus 59, the cost to the district would be the same. Since that person would most likely be a veteran teacher, their salary would probably be substantially higher than someone hired to replace them. So the district would actually save money by allowing them to retire at 55 rather than forcing them to work for an additional 4 years. Please think this through carefully before you determine your final plan, because these are life-changing decisions.
Anyone else?
I would like to just make a comment. Many times when we have the public comment section, we don't have the item on the agenda, so we don't get to talk about it. I really appreciate the ability to have this discussion with people tonight. It's really great. It's just a state law that it's not on the agenda, you can't talk about it. So I really appreciated everybody's comments and the discussion that we were able to have as board members back. Appreciate it. Except for John's.
Well, we still appreciate it.
All right, moving on to preliminary budget.
So this evening, before you have the preliminary budget, this is Ben's item. Ben has worked this through with the P&L, he'll get into it.
So there's 2 attachments in there. One of them is a DPI kind of mandated reporting structure for budgeting. So this is just broken down for the preliminary budget. And then another one just breaks down some of the larger items that we're looking at for next year's budget. The good news as we approach 18-19 is there's not very many unknowns in terms of from the state budget. So we're able to budget accordingly. We're able to adjust and plan for inflationary increases for salaries across the board for all staff. So those are built into the budget, as well as benefit renewal increases. We put amounts in there just in case those go up. So budgeting conservatively as we get more information as we go into the fall. It's preliminary budget, so there's still a lot of pieces out there before we have the budget here is we are upping the amount, like we alluded to earlier, for Fund 46 deposit from 300,000 in 17-18 to 500,000 in 18-19 to start planning for some of those maintenance items that are coming down the road. And then the other piece is the estimated tax levy would be a flat $9.10, just like it was for this year. So flat.
Nice work with the balanced budget, the flat rate, PNF, thank you very much for all your work on that.
Actually, it's a lot easier in the second biennial, isn't it?
Yes, yep. So obviously after this, we start looking towards 1920 and 2021, and again, just trying to plan for that, see where that may go, so.
Is that, I'll just ask this, but is that why we put a little bit more into the Fund 46 this year? Because next year it's an unknown yet what the state will do?
Yep, yeah, 1920 will be a new biennial budget, and so for 17-18, 18-19, we had a per pupil increase from the state of $200 for each year, which is a higher amount that we've seen in the prior years. We're not expecting that, or I'm not expecting that for 1920. At the most, probably going to be per pupil increase of about $100. There's a lot of other items in the state budget right now that's probably going to take a little bit away from public funding, public education funding. So we're trying to plan for that conservatively in case that comes through. We have that fail safe to take advantage of.
Hold on.
Can I ask you a detailed question? Do you know, to have your, the tax levy right now stay the same, the $9.10, do you know what you assume for the increase in valuation or decrease in what that number was?
We had estimated 3% increase.
Okay.
So obviously that number will,
We won't know.
it was 4.6% this most recent year, so we'll kind of see where that lands.
Okay.
As we get closer.
Thank you.
So we need action on that item.
Yep, anyone want to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against, motion carries. All right.
The next item is also Ben's, which is the budget amendments.
Yep. So each year around this time, we present to the board just amendments we have for the fiscal year that's ending. These are just budget changes we make throughout the year as different items come up. Buildings, apartments, they move money around as they underspend one area and they move money to a different area where their emergency came up or something like that. So those reflect all that. Probably the biggest changes for this in terms of larger ticket items would be the allocation of funds for the LED lights in the field house and the prepayment on our Fund 39 debt the board approved last month. Those are probably the biggest budget adjustments that are in there. This is the budget, and so this is not the actual activity for this year. We're currently going through our audit right now to see where we'll finish. I'm optimistic that we'll finish somewhere below that, the budget amount, so we can take less from fund balance, because right now we're pulling from fund balance for different projects. So.
How much do we save in the prepaying the debt?
In interest savings, about just under $100,000 for the community.
We need action on that one as well,
Yes.
board.
Yep.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against, motion carried. Item C, food service.
Yep, Ben has this one as well. There's no food here this evening. I think that's a PNF in July, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you have to look at Laura for that.
Okay.
So yeah, each year we renew the food service contract we have with Airmark. They're our vendor that we work with to feed our students. This renewal of contract would be a 2.5% increase on the rates from last year. This aligns with the contract language that matches up with CPI of food away from home, I believe. And so it's in line with what we were expecting. We are budgeting for it. We are fortunate in our district to have a very successful food service program where we typically run a profit on that, and so I don't have any concerns about the increase. It's going all back into the program, which is done very well, so.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against, motion carries.
Next item is 2018-19 employee handbook changes. This is an item that was shared at PNF, I believe, Conrad, and Conrad can provide you a quick update.
Thank you. This evening we have the annual process of updating handbooks for the successive year. Handbook changes for the support staff are really non-substantive. I can just quickly mention a lot of cleanup language, just deleting items that were causing a little bit of confusion. There's some legal changes that were necessary as far as making sure we're following the FMLA requirements when it comes to time increment, putting that down to 1 hour, making it a little bit clearer about unpaid vacation days for taken after regular paid vacation days have been exhausted. We had some Neola recommendations to get some language about organ donor, firefighter, EMT, and first responders, and overtime clarification. We realized that our practice with our custodians, we wanted to be consistent with what we were doing because it was fair, and we made some changes last year to the overtime language that we caught didn't quite cover what we intended to do, so we wanted to clarify that language so they aren't punished when we require them to have to do some of the work they need to do, particularly when it comes to snow removal. Any questions on those handbook changes? And then the professional educator handbook, again, really nothing substantive. Wanted to clarify a little bit of language regarding licensure changes now with the state. They've made some changes, and most of these handbook changes are related to being consistent with law. There was some language that we don't know even what it meant when it said extended contracts. Clarifying when teachers are on leave in the end of the year, how they earn the day for June. Neola again recommended some organ donor language and some leave language again for the EMT, firefighters, first responders. Curriculum committee participation is no longer going to be required after hours, so we needed to update that language since we're going to be doing that during PD days in the upcoming year, and really just cleaning up some language about parent communication and some Appendix A supervision and evaluation language. Questions on that? And if at any point retirement language or retirement benefits are changed, we would modify the handbook at that time, so at the moment there wouldn't be any changes in that area.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Item E.
Yep, next item, donations to the board. We have a number of donations this evening to approve. If you recall, we do this by consent vote. So the first item is $20,659 from Cedarburg Education Foundation, $1,500 to Westland Elementary School to purchase games and activities for the makerspace, $2,215 for Westland Elementary School to purchase an LCD digital microscope, $6,946 to Cedarburg High School to purchase an electric drum set, and $9,998 to Webster Middle School to purchase an EV3 Lego robotics kit and iPads. That's a total of $20,000, $659 from Cedarburg Education Foundation. Definitely grateful for their support. Next, $2,500 from the Fine Arts Boosters. This donation will be used to support the CHS band department for the 17-18 school year. Next item, $2,600 from the Greater Milwaukee Foundation. This donation will be used to support the CHS robotics program for the 17-18 school year. $1,240.89 from CHS PTO. This donation will be used to support the instructional and programmatic needs at CHS for the 17-18 school year. An amount of $6,000 from Webster PTO. This donation will be used for field trips, to support field trips for Webster Middle School students for the 17-18 school year. $3,000 from the Coles Cares Field Trip Grant Program. This donation will be used to support field trips for kindergarten, first and fifth grade Parkview Elementary students for the 18-19 school year. $1,500 from James and Michelle Fitzpatrick, and the matching donation of $50 from Wells Fargo. This donation will be used to support breakout spaces at Webster Middle School. And $500 from the Girl Scout Troop 8558. This donation will be used to support West Lawn Elementary School for the 17-18 school year in the following ways: $250 to purchase books for the maker spaces, $250 towards the West Lawn Playground Fund, $1,251.01 from the West Lawn 5th grade poster and bake sale. This donation will be used to support maker space and basketball hoop backboard at West Lawn Elementary School for the 17-18 school year. and $550 from the Coles Foundation. This donation will be used to secure 2 presenters from the Milwaukee Public Museum that will present to the 3rd grade classes at Westlawn Elementary School. So we ask that those donations be approved, totaling $41,390.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Against, motion carries. How much is that for the year so far? Do you have that?
$181,952.35.
And, I wish Ms. Newberger was here to hear that, because she just asked a question about fundraising and are we doing anything? And having worked extremely hard on the private sector side of fundraising for this district, I can tell you it's what we do. It's a great thing. We raise a lot of money. We have a lot of very generous people. So, I mean, $181,000 just in one school year for people that just want to improve our district is amazing. So, that is truly our fundraising for our district.
Agreed. Absolutely.
And, just to follow up, Brandon, on that comment, a lot of those donations are tied to our makerspace, fabrication lab, robotics, really part of our long-range master plan that we continue to invest in. You can see that the public's responding to that through these donations. Thank you.
All right, committee reports, buildings and grounds. I know we talked about quite a bit of that.
Right, we covered everything.
I think the one thing, the HVAC update, I know that they demoed that and
It's underway over the summer months.
it's underway, it's on target.
Yep, well underway.
Great. Okay, so both of those, negotiations committee, any update on that, Kevin?
Yeah, we're going to be discussing it in closed session.
And then personnel and finance, Brandon?
Yep, we talked about the long-range master plan stuff and handbook changes in the food service contract.
All right. At this time, I'll take a motion to adjourn into executive session where we will approve the minutes of May 16, 2018. The board may also consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility pursuant to 19.851C of the Wisconsin statute, teacher negotiations, teacher supplemental adjustments, and teacher post-employment benefits. I will take that motion.
Move to convene the closed session.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for the donations.